Greetings, Culture Warriors. It is I, Jeff Vieira, the author of Culture is Everything, and the host for this latest dispatch from the front. Interesting news out there in the business world today. So we're going to take a look at one story here. This is from Fox Business News. U-Haul prices jump amid high-tax city-state exodus. Company says price differential tends to indicate higher demand for moves in one direction. U-Haul prices are starting to reflect growing demand among residents to leave high-tax cities and states during the coronavirus pandemic, costing individuals more to flee these populated areas than to move there. The trend was first pointed out on Twitter by Brian Wesbury, who is the chief economist of First Trust Portfolios LP. He gives a list of U-Haul prices. As of September 15th, Sacramento to Phoenix, $1,278. Phoenix to Sacramento, $215. So that's a 6-time increase there. 6x. Albany to Orlando, $28.58. Orlando to Albany, $752, so about a 4x. Population and density are not the real forces moving prices, he continues. It's out-migration from high-tax, high-lockdown states. Westbury was citing data for a move from a 2-bedroom home to 3-bedroom apartment. Another couple of numbers in here that may be of interest. Here's Manhattan to Virginia Beach, $722. Virginia Beach to Manhattan, $275, so a little over twice. Miami to Raleigh, $1,195. Raleigh to Miami, $699. Los Angeles to Phoenix, $939. Phoenix to Los Angeles, $142. A spokesperson for U-Haul declined to comment on specific migration patterns, but did say prices often reflect ongoing trends. When there is a substantial difference in pricing for the same one-way equipment and for the same dates between two markets, it is reasonable and generally accurate to conclude there is a far greater demand for one-way equipment in the market, reflecting higher costs for departures, the spokesperson said. So let's unpack that a little bit. There's a little bit more to the story there, but we'll address that this way. U-Haul prices are driven by market demand. So the reason why you see 4 times, 6 times, 8 times the differential going out of a high-tax, oppressive lockdown environment to a lower-tax, freer environment, the reason why you see that is because there is much more demand for equipment to get out of the area. And in the case of a model like U-Haul, what happens is the asset leaves the area, and then if there's going to be another asset, it has to come back. So you have to make it attractive to bring that back. So thus you see the big difference. Listening to YouTube, there is a YouTuber known as Nerdrotic who has been covering his own family's experience with the lockdowns in California. He has lived most of his life in San Francisco. He and his wife had their businesses there. His wife's salon was not allowed to open through most of the time here since March due to Gavin Newsom's lockdowns. And the latest extension of that lockdown caused her to close her business. And they immediately started looking for another place to live where they could be freer. They're currently in San Diego looking for a move to Texas. Why are they in San Diego versus Texas? Because they couldn't get a U-Haul at a decent price to move their stuff from San Francisco, because so many people are trying to get out of San Francisco. So many people are trying to get out of California. So many people are trying to get out of New York. All these places that are legendary for their high taxes and for their oppressive lockdown regimes. Now, why might they do such a thing? Why now? Well, it's a couple of things. Number one is you're not being allowed to work because of the oppressive lockdown regime. Number two is these are also areas, by and large, that have had violent rioting and the withdrawal of police protection. So not only are you not allowed to work and turn your assets into money, you can't protect your assets effectively anymore because somebody can come steal them or burn them down pretty much without consequence in these areas. A third thing to consider is that when you start seeing people flee, not only do you lose friends and colleagues that you enjoyed working with, not only does it create a perception of desperation that, hey, it's time to get out, but also you just know from economics what is going to happen. When you have so many businesses that have been forced to close, when you have others that have been burned down without insurance and aren't coming back, when you have the engines that bring tax dollars into the state in high tax locations, what do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to cut spending? No, of course not. That's not what they're going to do at all. They're going to increase spending and try and make people more dependent upon government because that's where they get their power from. And who is going to pay for that? Well, they are first going to go to the federal government. That is why it's so important to them, among other things, to get a president who will cut blank checks to these Democrat-run cities that are absolute disasters right now. But if that doesn't happen, where will they get the money? Well, it's going to be one of two things. Either they will go bankrupt, whereupon they will have to kind of engineer public official pensions and that sort of thing, or they will tax the remaining tax base to death. And they will probably try the second option first because so many of their votes come from people with public pensions. So anyone with a brain can kind of see what's going to happen is if you do decide to stick it out, you are likely to get destroyed later. So why not go now while the getting's good? And that's what many people are doing. Why is Elon Musk leaving California for Texas? Well, it's really the same reason. California didn't want to let him do business. Made it too difficult to do business. And so he'll pick up and move. What do you think is going to happen with a lot of these Silicon Valley companies that do not need, there's no physical requirement for them to be located in the Silicon Valley? It used to be simple convenience to reach venture capitalists, but of course you can do that anywhere now. So I think you're going to see Silicon Valley break up under all this pressure. What does it mean from a cultural and values perspective? Well, I've shared a story a couple of times now about a famous video that you can find on YouTube of Steve Jobs presenting the plans for the Apple headquarters to the City Council of Cupertino, California. And what's remarkable about that was how entitled these council people were. So rather than be grateful that Jobs had elected to remain in Cupertino, the town he put on the map, for the vast increase in the amount of jobs that this headquarters was going to represent and the attendant boon to the economy from having so many people come in and go visit that headquarters, instead, they griped and moaned and demanded that he give the town free Wi-Fi. That's what they wanted. Mind you, they did absolutely nothing to contribute to the building of the headquarters. In fact, given this probably wasn't his first interaction with these people, I'd have to argue that they were kind of an argument against building the headquarters in Cupertino. But that mentality, it was articulated perhaps most crisply by President Obama when he said, "You didn't build that." So he was referring to business owners And the logic of his argument was that, hey, government built the roads and the sewer lines. You didn't build that, therefore, why should you claim that your business was the product of your work? Now, it makes no sense whatsoever as an argument, because laying in a road really doesn't mean that a successful business is going to be built at the end of that road. Indeed, where did the money to lay the road come from? Why, it came from the taxes paid by businesses and by the people who work for them. That's where it came from. So they took money from established businesses and they used it to build roads. And the dirty little secret is they first laundered that through labor union supporting Democrat politicians. So that a good chunk of the dollars that were spent on roads and sewers and other infrastructure improvements goes right back to electing corrupt politicians. That's what they built, corruption. But that mentality has infected so-called public servants all across the fruited plain, such that they believe that the entrepreneur is a kind of freeloader. That were it not for all the wonderful things given by government, these weird people couldn't go out and build fortunes on their own. Never mind that they tend to go to places where government's heavy hand is less felt in order to do what they do. And that's what you're seeing with these exoduses. You're seeing people leave Orwellian 1984 style regimes that have cropped up in these one-party communities for places where they can actually pursue their own happiness without being told how they must pursue it by those who presume to be better than them. So we have a case where you have some governments which value power above all else. Don't you think that Bill de Blasio and Cuomo and Gavin Newsom, you don't think that they look at the numbers and know that their tax base is evaporating? No, of course they do. But they simply value their own hold on power more. Their wealth is not impacted. Do you think Gavin Newsom's wealth is invested in California? He probably doesn't have a dollar there. So he's not worried about it. He's worried exclusively about maintaining his hold on power. When Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the Wicked Witch of the Midwest, when she takes off after a business owner who sued her and has social services of her state suddenly start showing up to try to take his kids from him, that is not the mark of someone who has a rational approach to economics. Rather, that is someone who is seeking to maintain tyrannical power no matter what. They value power. And if you value liberty, power must be taken from them. If you value prosperity, power must be taken from them. And if, due to the corruption that such unrestricted power inevitably breeds, as Lord Acton observed, power corrupts, absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. Then you have no alternative, really, but to vote with your feet. Your political vote at the ballot box doesn't matter. But your vote in going down to your local U-Haul and getting a trailer and packing it with your stuff and fleeing while you can does. And that's what people are doing. They value their own liberty. They value their own prosperity. They value America more than they value these socialist dystopias and hellholes that the corrupt politicians are so quick to build. So there's a lesson for all of us in this. Don't be the last one to flee, or you may not be allowed to flee. Thanks, and have a great day.